Hey everybody. So I have Fred Evrard on with me today. Fred caught my eye actually on Dr. Berg's channel. He released a video about his story dealing with cancer and how he went from stage 3 colon cancer to no cancer in 4 months, which is really incredible. So I'm super excited to get his story out there, and especially for people dealing with cancer, because I think it's a very, very important story to get out into the public. So, Fred, I just want to thank you so much for coming on today. And I was wondering if you could just start by telling us, your story, being diagnosed with cancer, how that was, and how you came to be about where you are now.
Yeah. Hi, Scott, and thanks for having me. Yeah, well, the story is quite simple, actually. My name is Fred. I'm 50 years old. I always had a pretty healthy lifestyle, as much as I knew at the time. I never smoked, never drank, never had any soda, junk food in my entire life. So being from France, good, healthy, clean food, fatty, but clean food was part of the deal. And practiced martial arts and Tai Chi and meditation my entire life. So I knew there was a cancer history in my family. My dad died of cancer. My grandfather died of cancer. So on the male side of my family, it's cancer is definitely a problem. But honestly, I thought that my healthy lifestyle would protect me from that, and I never really thought about it. I never really did any test or anything. And in September 2020, I was 48 years old at the time. I started to have some blood in my stool, and I went back to France. I live in South Carolina. I went back to France for some medical exams, and they told me you have colon cancer, colorectal cancer, stage 3, borderline stage 4, and it's urgent that you start your chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery protocol right away. That was the beginning of the adventure, if I can call it like that.
Wow. Okay. So, and then you decided to go the natural route, right? So this is the
Yeah,
key to your story here. You went the natural route, and from your interviews that I've seen, fasting and ketosis was the biggest part of your therapy. So can you get into that and what you really think was the key to resolving your cancer?
yeah, absolutely. So, well, cancer is multifactorial. So my first thought was that healing would also be multifactorial. And I didn't count on one thing in particular. But yes, you're right. Fasting was a big part of it. Being in ketosis and keeping my insulin low was a big part of it as well. And just to be clear, I didn't I don't have anything against Western medicine and modern medicine, and I didn't plan to go the way I went. It's just that when the doctor told me the diagnosis, they also gave me a prognosis, and they also gave me a protocol. And when I looked at the two last part, what was my chances, and what were my chances, and what was the protocol, and how invasive the protocol was, I've decided to try something else first. So basically, they told me
So
that I had to do between 1 and 2 rounds of chemo, which is between 12 and 24 sessions, most likely 2 rounds. Uh, then I had a little break, and for about another few months, they were gonna do radiations, and at the end of that, a surgery, which would have probably let me uh, in a state where I couldn't live the life that I was used to with my martial arts and my parkour and CrossFit and all the things that I do. So basically, at the end of the radiation and chemo, they were gonna cut a piece of my colon and let me basically live the rest of my life like that. So when I just
so
waited, the pros and the cons, I thought to myself, it's not worth it. I need to find something else. And I already knew enough about natural healing, and I had a small training in Chinese medicine and chiropractic and nutrition and fasting. So I thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna start looking into that. And I first starting my research. That's the first week after I've been diagnosed. I started doing some research on the medical side, and I didn't find anything that could help me. So I've decided to look into research and biology and get away from the medical aspect of it and the pharmaceutical aspect of it. And then I found tons of scientific literature on fasting and cancer, on ketogenic diet and cancer, and many other natural paths that one can explore and research in order to help the healing. So I started with a 21-day water fast. And so 21 days with no food, absolutely nothing except water. And once a week, I had a little shot of wheatgrass, fresh wheatgrass, which was recommended to me by a naturopath friend of mine. So that's what I did for 21 days. And at the end of the 21 days, the tumor, which was huge, it was a 10 centimeters tumor, uh, went down 50%. So it went from 10 centimeters to 5.5 centimeters in 21 days of fasting with no medication, no chemo, nothing, not even an aspirin. So I didn't take anything. I just wanted to try the fasting, and it worked really, really well. So that was the first part, the beginning of my journey. And that also gave me the strength and the confidence to say, okay, maybe there's another way. Maybe there's something I can do myself and not just blindly counting on Western medicine and all the toxins that goes with their protocol.
Mhm. And you said in previous interviews that you either trust the science or you trust your doctors, right? You can't really
Yeah.
trust both at the same time. But I know that you always say, always get advice from your doctor and seek professional help. But so can you explain to us what is the science behind fasting and ketosis, and how does that work to starve the cancer?
Yeah. So what I usually say is, I trusted the science and I didn't trust the medical institution. I'm trying not to point finger to individuals. So doctors do what they can, and most of them are under a lot of pressure from the pharmaceutical industry, from the governments, from the hospital in which they work, to apply certain protocol and not to look the other way. So yeah, when I started looking into research, I found Dr. Thomas Siegfried's work, of course, cancer as a metabolic disease, which really, really, really helped me understand what cancer was and what we can do to fight it. Also, I studied the work of Walter Longo, who is a professor in California and specialized in fasting for cancer. And all those guys, all those scientists, they really gave me hope. This plus the results of my first 21-day fast, I was convinced that I could beat this disease on my own. So I've decided three things. I've decided, one, the cancer is not going to kill me. Two, uh, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And three, may food be your medicine. And those three things, those three mantras, so to speak, I put them in my head. I engraved them in my head, and that's what I went with for 4 months. So after my fast, I was really encouraged to continue in that path, and I've decided to go on a ketogenic diet simply because all the research showed that tumor used mostly glucose as a source of fuel. You cut down the glucose completely or as close as you can to completely, and the tumor will starve. So that's for the keto diet. As far as the fasting and the science behind, it's very simple. And I'm going to try to put it in simple words because I'm not a doctor or a biologist. It's when you stop eating, your healthy cells will feed on your dirty cells. So healthy cells, when they have nothing else to do, they will literally eat the cancer cells. It's called autophagy. And autophagy is just this. You stop eating and your body will self-cleanse. The second law, if we can call it that, that is used in fasting and that I used and studied is homeostasis. Homeostasis simply claims that any living organism, when leave to rest in its natural environment, automatically come back to a state of balance. So basically what it means that between autophagy and homeostasis, the body is self-healing if you let it rest and if it is in its natural or as close as possible to its natural environment. And that's what I tried to recreate during those 4 months. And I had no idea it was going to be 4 months. I mean, I didn't know anything about cancer before I got it. So it was a little bit, I wouldn't say luck, but how can I put that? I took a chance. I mean, I went to the casino and I put my money on my immune system instead of putting it on drugs and chemicals. And obviously for me, it worked. I don't know if we can say that it would work for everybody, every kind of cancer, every type of people. I have no idea, but it definitely worked for me.
Okay. So can we go into a little bit of details with the fasting? Because I'm very curious about this. For somebody like myself, I've done some 24-hour fasts, I've done some 48-hour fasts. But it's hard for me to wrap around doing a 3-week fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I hear this. I saw Guy Tenenbaum, who mentioned he did a 45-day fast,
Yeah.
with a little bit of tiny bits of food here and there. So when you did your 3-week fast, you mentioned that you had zero food, just a little bit of wheatgrass juice every now and then. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Now, how did you feel at that process? Like, how were you feeling after 2.5 weeks into fasting? Was it difficult for you, or was it a lot easier for you than you may have expected?
It was horrible. First, I'm a
Yeah.
foodie, so I love food. But I was exhausted. I was super tired, of course. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't do much. But I don't know if it was because of the fast or because of the cancer, because the cancer literally eats you from inside. And I'll tell you a little more about this in a moment. But yeah, the cancer was really aggressive. September was still okay. I started the fast late September. October was tough. November was my worst. So the worst that I felt, the more pain, the more weight I lost, was not during the fast, was after. So the cancer was still, even though the tumor went down 50%, the cancer was still very aggressive. So yeah, when you fast 21 days, or actually when I fasted 21 days, um, I was tired. Obviously, I lost some weight, not tons. I lost most of my weight when I did some chemo, and I will tell you about that later. But I didn't lose
Right.
much weight when I was fasting. I lost maybe 3, 4 kilos. Before I started, I was 48 years old, like I said before, and I was in the best shape of my life. I was doing martial art, boxing, parkour, CrossFit, Tai Chi, very active, 70 kilos, 9% body fat. So I was in peak condition. And that probably helped. But I lost a few kilos during the fast, not that much. And after in November, after 3 sessions of chemo, I went down to 49 kilos. So I lost almost 20 kilos,
Oh, wow.
almost 40 pounds, I think, something like that,
So that's
in
only about,
just a month.
if you look at pounds, that's about 110 pounds, 110
Uh,
to 115 pounds, something like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. And how tall are you?
I'm 176 centimeters.
76, 7. Okay. So you were very underweight. Like, so at that point, were you still pretty hopeful that you were on the right track here, or were you sort of doubting
Yeah,
yourself a
yeah,
little bit? I
yeah.
guess.
Well, several things happened. So after my fast, I wanted to go on a ketogenic diet. And the truth is, I couldn't. I was in such a pain, and almost everything I ate increased the pain. I couldn't digest anything, I
Okay.
couldn't eliminate anything. There's one thing that I could eat, one thing that my body wanted is beef. That's it. So for 4 months, I ate almost nothing but ribeyes every single day,
Wow.
and a little bit of beef liver, cooked in some ghee with salt. Uh, After about halfway through, I add some vegetable juices in my diet, but most of the time I did carnivore and beef only. Organic, 100% grass fed, the best quality beef I could afford. But that was my diet. So when just a parenthesis
Wow.
here, when people tell me stop eating meat, it's gonna give you cancer, or your cancer is gonna come back. And personally, I don't know if it's the case for everybody, but personally, I believe I cured cancer with ribeyes. That's my best way to
Well,
put it.
it's funny that you couldn't digest anything, but you could digest ribeyes, because a lot of people would probably find that a little bit difficult to digest with the fat and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that we always hear. You go to a gastroenterologist, they're going to say, "Oh, well, red meat's going to give you colon cancer," and you actually used it to treat your colon cancer, which is kind
Yeah.
of ironic.
Yeah.
So you did a 3 week fast? Obviously, you didn't just go straight into eating ribeyes. How did you break that fast? Because obviously you need to build up your digestive enzymes again. And so I'm just sort of curious in the little details about that.
Well, at first I didn't know that I could only eat ribeye. So after my fast, I knew I was gonna go keto. So I tried, lighter keto food, a little bit of eggs, uh, what else? Some veggies with olive oil, garlic, stuff like that, and it didn't work. The
Okay.
worst, the worst that I felt at that time, it was October 2020. The worst was after a plate of spinach. I thought I was gonna die from the spinach. So I learned very
It's all
quickly
the
that,
oxalates.
yeah, maybe, and the fibers and the oxalates. I learned very quickly that my colon was so inflamed that I couldn't take any fibers, especially insoluble fibers. So I had to cut down all veggies completely. And then I was left with proteins and fat. And I had no problem with fat, olive oil, ghee, coconut oil, avocado. Those were okay. And of course, meat. I didn't know that I could only eat red meat, so I went with, chicken, beef, pork, a little bit of everything. And as I was going in my diet, so to speak, I realized that beef was the only thing that didn't hurt me at all. I mean, I could eat ribeyes every day, and I did. I actually physically did eat ribeye almost every day for 3 months. So 3 weeks of,
what
of,
it, what
of
it,
fasting,
oh, sorry.
1 week of trying to find what I could eat, and the other 3 months, nothing but ribeyes and a little bit of vegetable juice at the end.
And what exactly did your diet look like? How often were you eating? How many meals per day? How many steaks per day? Like what did that look like?
Okay, so after my fast, I did the intermittent fasting, of course. I wanted to stay in ketosis or an autophagy for as long as I could. So I had one meal a day at night, and I broke my fast with a little bit of fat, like a spoon of coconut oil. And after that, a big ribeye. And when I say big, I mean a pound of ribeye, and that's it. That's for the first maybe month and a half. After that, I discovered that I could have some veggies, but in liquid form without the fibers. That's what I use a juicer. And so after that, it was probably mid-November. I broke my fast with a vegetable juice, only seasonal veggies, organic, of course, and then a big ribeye, and that was it for the day.
Wow. Okay. So you just lived off a ribeye every day with vegetable juice. That
Yeah,
was it for.
for three
And were
months,
you
a
able
little
to
more, a
maintain
little
your
less.
weight? A lot of people with cancer, they're rather scared about their weight. A lot of people are underweight. And is this something that, fasting and living off ribeyes, is that something you think that would be attainable for somebody who's a little bit underweight with cancer?
I have no idea. I have no idea, and honestly, I don't know. What I know is when I fast and when I started my carnivore diet for the first few weeks or months, uh, I didn't lose much weight. Like I said, I lose 2 or 3,
Okay.
maybe 4 kilos when I did the fast. After that, it stabilized with the ribeyes, and and that's the second part of the story. The pain was absolutely intolerable. I was in such a pain.
Right.
I was on the floor almost 24/7, you know, and my hands on my intestine, my hands on my stomach, and yelling and crying and beating my head against a wall. I was in such a pain. So during all that time, I was followed by my oncologist. So I didn't do it blindly. I had blood tests blood work done on me every month or 2 months. I don't remember. I had MRI quite often as well. So I was followed, even though I didn't do what he wanted me to do. The oncologist was open-minded enough to follow me and to keep doing all the tests that I needed. And comes November, and the pain is worse and worse, and I don't know what to do. So I go back to see the oncologist, and I'm telling him, "Do you have something I can take? Morphine, something?" And nothing worked. Nothing worked. And I learned later that my tumor was right on a nerve. So that's apparently the worst pain you can feel when you have cancer. And it was just terrible. I always tell people that on a scale of 1 to 10, 1, you have a headache, and 10, you just kill yourself because it's not possible to continue. I was at 9.9 24/7. And honestly, if I didn't have my lovely
Wow.
wife with me and my family and my friends, I would have, I would have killed myself. The pain was just, it was impossible to deal with. So my oncologist came out with a solution. He told me, look, I know you don't want to do chemo and radiation and all that stuff, but I can guarantee that with a little bit of chemotherapy, I can take care of your pain. It's not going to cure you. And I still seriously encourage you to consider the regular chemotherapy protocol. But if you don't, let's do 6 sessions, and I guarantee your pain will be gone. So I said, okay. I was in such a pain, and my goal was not to prove how tough I was. And I don't use Western medicine. I do it all natural. That was not my goal. My goal was to survive with the least trauma to my body possible. So when he said, okay, we're just going to do a little bit, I said, okay, I think between fasting and what I know about the human body and my own body, I think I can deal with it. So here comes the first chemo session. And of course, I've read all the studies from Walter Longo, who claims that with fasting before, during, and after chemo, you have no side effects, or at least almost no side effects. So I used his knowledge and his work, and I fast the day before chemo. Then my chemotherapy lasted 3 days. I fast for 3 days, and I fasted the day after chemo. So 5 days around the chemotherapy session. First session, 0 side effect, nothing. I didn't lose a hair. I wasn't sick. I didn't throw up, nothing. I felt completely normal as I could, knowing that I had cancer. The second chemotherapy sessions, a few weeks later, I thought to myself, let's make an experiment. Is it the fasting or is it my body who could take it? And I didn't fast. I had a very light keto meal before the chemo. I was sick like a dog. I was so sick. You have no idea. Throwing up, uh, uh, constipation, diarrhea, super, super weak, headaches, horrible headaches. So, of course, comes the third session. I fast again, nothing, 0 side effect. And after the third session, the pain was gone. So I told my oncologist, okay, I'm stopping there. And the guy is going crazy. He said, no, you can't. It's working. We got to keep going. And I said, no, the pain is gone. It's what I wanted. I know 6 sessions is not going to cure me. So I only used it for treating the symptoms. And it worked. And thank you very much. And that was the end of chemo for me, 3 sessions. And after that, I went back to my carnivore diet. And that's the time where I started to incorporate a little bit of vegetable juice every day.
Okay. So they say that, cancer ferments off of glucose and glutamine. Did you do anything to sort of look after that glutamine component? Is there any
Yes.
supplements you're taking?
Yes.
Yeah. What did you do for that end?
So for the glutamine, the best, according to my research, is the green tea. So after every single piece of meat, I had a hot green tea, and especially matcha green tea, which is the Japanese version of green tea. And so after each ribeye, I automatically had some green tea. And I don't know exactly what it did, but I never had any side effect of it. And of course, after a few months, the cancer was gone. So I guess it worked. And I also took different supplements. I use. I put the whole list in my book, but from memory, I used garlic, olive oil, green tea, obviously, turmeric, And as far as pills, I used extra vitamin D3, extra zinc, vitamin K2, melatonin also. Melatonin has been proven to be not only a sleep hormone, but also a very strong antioxidant and anti-cancer. So I supplemented myself with melatonin every night before going to sleep. And I think that's about it.
Okay. So let's fast forward a little bit. So, okay, so you do all this, it's 4 months into it. And from my understanding, from beginning to end, it was a 4 month period of time from your cancer diagnosis to cancer not being detectable anymore.
Absolutely.
So can you bring us to what happened there? Bring us to your doctor's office. You did the fasting, you did the keto diet. I mean, what was the response to that?
All right. So I was diagnosed in September 10, 2020, and January 9, 2021. So exactly 4 months later, day for day, the oncologist told me I was cancer free. So before that comes Christmas. And between Christmas and New Year for a week, my mother, who's a pastry chef in Paris, comes to visit us in South Carolina. And for a week, I completely fall out the wagon. I mean, I had cakes and crepes and pastry and pasta and rice, everything that I didn't touch for more than 3 months. And no side effects. I was good. So I really felt that my intestine was healing. But at the end of the week, I knew that my next MRI was about a month later, and I started to freak out. I thought to myself, "Oh my God, I'm gonna regress. I mean, the cancer is gonna progress, and it's gonna be okay. I need to do something." So I decided to go on a second 21-day fast, which I didn't do. So I fasted for 5 days, and then I ate during the weekend, and then fasted for 5 days again, ate during the weekend, fasted 5 days, and ate during the weekend. So during 21 days, I fasted during the week and ate during the weekend. And at the end of those 21 days came my last MRI. So I go, I do my blood test, the MRI, everything. And I go to the oncologist office, and he opened his door with a big smile. And he tells me, "Mr. Evrard, I don't say that very often in my line of work. We don't use those words, but I can tell you, you are disease free."
Wow. Wow, that must have been incredible.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So how did
I'm still emotional just telling
respond to
the
that?
story.
Yeah, I imagine with your kids, it must have been such an exhilarating feeling, to know that you'd still be around them. It must have been very emotional for you.
Yeah, but I didn't expect that. I was hoping that with the fast, I would keep progressing and that the tumor was smaller and smaller. But I really didn't expect him to tell me, you're cancer free, you're disease free. But it's what happened. And my wife and I, when I came back from the hospital, I looked at her and I told her in French, I'm cancer free. I just got my result, and we started crying and laughing and hugging, and the emotional um, wave that comes at you is pretty strong. It's
Right.
something.
I can imagine. So, okay, so what do you think was the biggest factor in beating your cancer? If you had to pinpoint, if there's anything you could pinpoint, maybe one or two things, what do you think was the biggest contributor to curing it?
Honestly, I have no idea. And when I say I have no idea, it's I did so many things. Uh, Definitely, the prolonged fasting was a big part of it. Not only because of my experience, but also when I see what it does to others. When I look at Guy and when I look at other testimonials that I found when I was trying to heal myself, it seems that the prolonged fasting and 21 day being some kind of magic number, I have no idea why, seems to be really working for many people. I also heard of people who did the fast and didn't have any results. So I couldn't tell what is the difference and what is the common point between those people. But yeah, for me, it was a big part of it. The second one was my semi-carnivore diet. I truly, truly believe, like I told you before, that I cured cancer with ribeyes. And it's multifactorial, like I said. It's not only that, but even today, that's for me the easiest food to eat and digest and process. And it's part of my post-cancer protocol. I still to this day eat mostly ribeyes, and it works for me. I also
Wow.
I also did a lot of extreme cold exposure following the Yim Off method. So I went into freezing waterfalls here in the mountain, in the Blue Ridge Mountain, several times a week. Water at 27 degrees, and that was also part of my protocol. Mini trampoline. I did a lot of rebounding on a trampoline just because it's super, super good for your lymphatic system, which is, of course, one of the key to eliminate cancer cells. So I did rebounding on a mini trampoline 3 minutes every single day. I did some Tai Chi. I did some deep breathing, meditation, always trying to be positive. It's a lot of things. It's really a lot of things. But if I have to pinpoint 2 or 3 things, it would be fasting, the diet, and the supplement. So mostly food related, I think, are what really helped me the most.
Right. And talking about stress, I mean, going through this ordeal, the amount of pain that you were in, I mean, how did you manage that? Because obviously stress is something when you're in that much pain, it's very hard to manage. So, I mean, what sort of tools did you use to sort of cope with that?
The cold water really helped. It's really good for inflammation. It boosts your immune system. And for me, it calmed me right away. So my wife, my dog, and I, we usually go to the mountains, to the waterfall at about 8 a.m. And at 8:30, when I'm in the water, the pain is gone. When I get out of the water,
Okay.
it's still better for several hours. So yes, definitely cold water really helped me. Um, breathing was the only thing I could do, and but there was not a lot of things that really helped me with the pain, and that's one of the reasons why I decided to do some chemo. So that was mostly October. October was a nightmare. November was really when I was beginning of November. I was at my lowest as far as health and energy. Then I did the chemo, really helped me in one side with the pain, but that's when I lost the most amount of weight. So I lost almost 20 kilos after 3 sessions of chemo, and that bring me to early December. So early December, I didn't have pain anymore. I felt much better, more energy. I started to work out again, to do a little bit of HIIT, to do a little bit of weightlifting, to go back to my martial arts, and of course, keep eating beef and beef organs and stuff like that. How do you call it? Bone broth. So everything from beef was helping me getting the weight back, and I started to have my weight coming up. Uh, yeah, early December.
Okay. So you're starting to feel a little bit better. So since then, you've been very public about your story. What has the response been? Have you seen some pushback, or is it generally pretty positive? Have people come to you saying like that your story has helped save their lives as well, or what has the response been?
Yeah, the response has been pretty positive. A lot of people contacting me and telling me that, or they did some kind of similar protocol and it really helped them, or maybe saved them, or simply that the story gave them hope and courage and strength, to fight the disease. But I always tell people, I'm not a doctor. I don't know enough about this protocol that I used to tell you, hey, it's gonna heal you. What I can tell you is it worked for me, and use the internet. Internet was my friend at the time. I read so many studies and protocol in the literature, in the scientific literature, that I managed to find my own protocol and people have to make their research. That's my point. I'm not saying that what I did will save everybody, and I wouldn't dare to claim that. But what I'm saying is, if you have a cancer, you have to know everything about cancer. If you have diabetes, you have to know everything that that you can read about diabetes. If you have something else, you have to study your disease and not just follow blindly the protocol that is offered to you at the hospital. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying you need to know what you have and how it works.
Right. And I think that also, the problem lies is that there's a lot of alternative therapies out there. And the difference between some of those, like, some people say take herbs for cancer or do mega doses of vitamin C, or there's a lot of sort of stuff out there that naturopaths are pushing that, isn't, I would say, scientifically based, a lot of it. But the difference is that this actually is scientifically based. And there's plenty of research that you guys could do. Even just on Google, there's lots of papers you could look at with prolonged fasting, with keto, with using keto metabolic therapy as part of a cancer treatment, and being very effective. And there's a lot of anecdotal cases out there like yours and other people I'm interviewing, where you've seen a lot of success in terms of sending your cancer into remission or just beating it all together. People. There's one lady I interviewed. Her mother has been 15 years cancer-free. She had a glioblastoma, and she did metabolic therapy. So I really hope that we get to that point where this is kind of more widely accepted, and it's not sort of seen with more skepticism, because again, there's a lot of revenue generation, right? From the pharmaceutical companies and the hospitals that make a lot of money off of chemo and radiation. And unfortunately, or maybe not so unfortunately, there isn't a lot of money to be made off of fasting and therapeutic ketosis, right? So,
Yeah.
Is that something that you've seen though? Do you see a lot of skepticism of your story and the therapies that you've practiced?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I was telling you, most of the people that contact me or comment under my videos, it's usually very positive, and people are very thankful, and I'm thankful to them. But where I feel the most amount of resistance is, of course, from the medical world, and I understand completely. But at some point, you need to open your mind. I mean, I opened my mind to alternative therapy and to classical therapy. I used both when I needed them, but I always did it with doing my research first. I mean, like I said before, I love food. And if I'm not going to eat for 21 days, I need to know that there's some studies on it, that it's solid. I don't want to starve myself and then the cancer spreads 10 times faster. So yeah, I made my research, and during those research, I found also a lot of doctors and people from the medical world resisting this and saying, no, if you fast when you have cancer, you're going to die, because most people who die from cancer, they are also undernourished. So yeah, you have to make your research. It's very hard for me to tell everybody do what I did because it works. I have no idea if it's going to work with everyone. I know many people, Guy included, who did something very similar and it worked. But I'm also aware that I was in the perfect environment, and that's super, super important. I own a martial art franchise. I have 20 something schools around the world. I have great team working with me, and I could afford not to go to work every day when I was sick, and that's a big plus. My entire family was behind me. None of my close friends or family told me, "You're crazy. You're gonna die. You need to go and do your chemo right away and radiation and surgery." Nobody did that. So I had the full support of my environment and especially my wife. I live in the Blue Ridge Mountain. There's no pollution, there's no noise, there's no stress, there's no criminality. So I was in an environment, in a cocoon, where I could focus on nothing but getting better. And honestly, if some guy has cancer and doesn't like his job, has to go to work every day, fight with his wife every day, has trouble with his kids, doesn't sleep well, and how is this guy gonna do? I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it was already super hard for me with that lifestyle, with that cocoon. I mean, the guy who doesn't have that, God, it's gonna be hard. So I'm aware that I was in the perfect environment to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Fred, I just want to thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story today.
Of
If you
course.
guys are interested, oh, sorry, Fred, did you have something to add to that?
No, 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 no.
Okay, sorry. Fred has a book, actually, he has several books, but the one that I read is called How My Immune System Beat Cancer, which is a very helpful book, and you list off your protocol in there. I believe you also have some resources and share your protocol on your website on fredevrard.com.
Yes.
And you can also find him on his YouTube channel and Instagram, which I'll link down below. So Fred, thank you again so much for coming. I'm really hoping that we could perhaps do a part 2 at some point. And yeah, I really hope that you'll be able to share your progress with us.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Scott, for having me, and I had a great time too.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.